October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Throughout the month, we're speaking with aid to victims of domestic abuse to raise awareness on how you can help someone you know. Joining me now in Studio A is John Reyes, Prevention and Education Manager for the organization. He's here to talk more about the role domestic violence and intimate partner violence can play in young adults. Good morning.
Good morning, Zach.
Certainly a hot topic, a topic that's always evolving and what it looks like and how it impacts people. Where do we start when it comes to our young adults?
Well, with our young adults and our teens and our young adults, I really believe a lot of it starts with the fact that they've normalized bad behaviors. A lot of the interactions that they have, whether it's communication or through social media and through technology, they've normalized things that are not normal within relationships. And I think understanding that, and for them to understand that those behaviors aren't necessarily good for them, but also not really acceptable.
Yeah. Toxicity and toxic relationships, I know in recent years, they've really become buzzwords, so to speak. But really, truly, they are being normalized. It's a generation that's come to accept this as the way of life and the way things are, which is obviously turning into be dire for so many folks.
Yeah, very much so. And again, it's back to whether it was learned at a young age or just once they hit school age and in high school, they've just normalized these behaviors because everyone is doing it and they see it everywhere.
That obviously being an obstacle. What are other obstacles when it comes to these types of issues for these folks?
One, I would say having people to talk to about them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times with teenagers and young adults, the fear of somebody rejecting you or somebody judging you, casting judgment. Judgment's huge for this younger generation and feeling like they're being judged, especially with teenagers and young adults. The perception that you may potentially lose freedoms. Part of adolescence is the growth of independence. And if you share with somebody that you're in an abusive relationship or that things are not going well, a lot of times the caring adults in our lives or the other people in our lives try to help us. And in helping us, they're actually pulling us away from those things that we're still trying to explore and learn. So a lot of it is not knowing who to turn to, and again, never seeing what a good, healthy relationship looks like. Statistically speaking, 70% of college-age students that have been in abusive relationships had no idea that they were in abusive relationships until they got out. So again, they normalized that, or they thought that's the way people treat each other in relationships. So a lot of it is just understanding what healthy relationships are in comparison to abusive habits in relationships.
And remembering too what it's like to be a teenager, right? To be a young adult, and knowing that on top of that, it's 2024, and so there are so many additional influences that we did not have when it was time for us to go through those trying times. Those influences also can be detrimental to violence.
Oh, for sure. And again, the things that they see on an everyday basis, the way they communicate with everybody, their interactions, period. And I don't like casting blame or anything, but social media and technology, period. If you'd see a lot of these young people's, what they call their influencers, they aren't necessarily always good people or sending good messages. But if enough people find that as, oh, this is the way to be, it steamrolls. And you've seen how anyone's message can steamroll and become, viral. And I think a lot of times that whole shock for people that are posting this kind of stuff. But the young people, they take this stuff to heart. And for as much as they have access to all this wonderful technology, a lot of times they gravitate to the things that aren't necessarily good or right or real.
Yeah, certainly changes the game, right? It's a game changer when it comes to these types of situations. If you're a parent and you suspect that your child is dealing with domestic violence or that intimate partner violence, what should you do? What can you do? How do you intervene?
I think the best thing you can do is try to have open conversations. And I know that teenagers tend to push us away when we start trying to talk to them about things that they find either too personal or they don't want to share. My suggestion to parents when I talk to parent groups is actually the CDC's website has conversation starters for every age group and on just about every topic that you can think about on how to engage your young people in conversations. I would also suggest for not only parents but for teenagers, I tell adults all the time, loveisrespect.org. It breaks it down for young people in the way they have relationships, everything from what healthy relationships look like to what abuse looks like in relationships, and even has quizzes on am I a good partner, am I in a healthy relationship, is my partner getting better? So I think having those resources and being able to look at that stuff before you start the conversations. And I think the biggest thing is remember as a parent to stay engaged. When you disconnect, the beginning of that disconnect, and I know they're trying to find independence, but the beginning of that disconnect starts the I don't think I want to talk to you as much anymore. So just knowing that you're there, even though you're not, trying to interfere, but they need to know that you're there and not judging them.
Being there for them when they need it, but of course, having those conversations, and those conversations are going to look differently with different folks, and dependent upon your age, that could also have an impact on what that conversation looks like.
And then you talked about influences, and some of it's going to be cultural, because different cultures have different ways of looking at certain types of things in relationships, in the way they interact with other people. So also understanding that as well. So knowing that that conversation might be a little bit, and the last thing about that culture is understanding that teens have a totally different social culture when they're with their own peer group than they're with any other people. So that's important to understand.
That is a good reminder. John, talk to us about AVDA and the different resources that you offer to folks looking to, get the ball moving, so to speak, and being positive here.
Yeah. Well, AVDA, as far as our outreach and our prevention and education department, we do everything from we go and talk to parent groups about teen dating abuse, about the effects of domestic violence on children. I think a lot of times people don't realize that even at the youngest ages, kids can be affected by domestic violence, and their development and upbringing has a lot to do with what they experience. For the most part, with young people, with teenagers themselves, we go into middle schools and high schools. I go into juvenile detention centers, and we just talk to young people about what healthy relationships look like, what abusive relationships look like. In the future, we're looking at having those kind of presentations independently, but for the most part right now, we're really engaged in schools and school districts. So I recommend, again, back to loveisrespect.org if you have those immediate questions. But if you'd like to see AVDA go into one of your schools, contact the school counselors, because we normally go through them and the school administrations to get us into schools and have as many, I want to speak to as many young people as possible, just so they can see what a healthy relationship looks like in comparison to abusive one.
Good stuff. As always, great work. Thank you so much for coming in, John. We do appreciate it.